Welcome to the Gateless Podcast, the place where remarkable women share their journeys to success on their own terms. I'm Kara. I'm an executive at a tech startup, and I've been in this game since pretty much the beginning of my career.
And I'm Haley. I'm the owner of a subscription website serving thousands of real estate agents around the globe.
And together, we're the co-founders of Gateless, a thriving community where women share openly and support each other on their own paths to success.
We believe that every woman has a unique story and perspective that deserves to be heard.
So each episode, we'll be bringing you inspiring interviews with incredible women who have forged their own paths, overcome challenges, and achieve their version of success.
From entrepreneurs and tech leaders to doulas and creative trailblazers, we'll dive deep into their stories, uncovering their lessons, insights, and advice they've gained along the way.
Our mission is to connect and uplift women in all aspects of their professional lives.
So get ready to be inspired, motivated, and enlightened.
Welcome to the Gateless Podcast.
All right, Kara. It is.
Hello.
So we just did a little episode of you asking me questions, and this podcast is going to be us interviewing amazing, inspiring women in all different types of businesses and industries. And what better way to start than to interview you, the most inspiring woman I know.
Oh, thank you.
So let's just jump right into it. Okay. So first, I want to know a little background. I honestly don't know that much background about how you got started, and tell me about your first big girl role. Let's talk about that.
Okay. Oh geez. Okay. So I was a business and finance major in college. I was a little overachiever, and I felt like I needed to get the perfect job out of college. And when I went to look for jobs, college doesn't actually help you know what job is going to make you happy and what you're going to thrive in. You just sort of know okay, I have these degrees and I had this GPA, I can get this job. So my first job was as an analyst at Morgan Stanley in Baltimore, Maryland. And I felt really proud that I got the job, but I definitely knew that it wasn't going to be exhilarating. And I was right. So when I started, it was so shocking to me, how little brain function I actually had to use to do my daily job. And it made me sad. I was like, wow, I worked really hard in college to get a good GPA and to learn a bunch of stuff that I was going to go use in my big girl life. And I was truly clicking the same 7 buttons over and over again. And it was super demoralizing and disheartening. And I was just depressed. And I also didn't love where I was living. I just didn't love any of it. So I, after probably a few months of coming home every day after work and calling my parents and crying and being I hate this. Is this just what it's like to be an adult? And I think they honestly were yeah, sister, it is. But they did encourage me to stick it out. And after 3 months, I was I can't do this anymore. I started just tapping into any connection I could find. I had 2 requirements. I didn't want to work for Morgan Stanley, and I didn't want to live in Baltimore anymore. I wanted to move to DC. So those were my only requirements. I literally would have done anything. So I actually in Baltimore was living with this really kind girl who introduced me to a friend that she grew up with. They grew up together, went to college together, who was working for a cool tech startup in DC. I was I have no idea what that means, but that sounds excellent. So she connected me with him, sweet Jeff, and she was I don't really know what they do, but it's interesting. He likes it. Talk to him. So I talked to him, and he was basically can you write emails? Can you make phone calls? It's I am capable. I sure can. And he was great. I'm going to introduce you to my boss. So I had a couple conversations. I really, if I'm being totally honest, I didn't exactly know what I was interviewing for. The only thing I remember from the interview was that they asked me to sell them a pen.
They said,
classic. Sell me this pen. And
you were just going to be doing emails and...
Yeah, but in hindsight, I know that I was an SDR. I was making phone calls and sending emails to set appointments for an AE. And
wait, what are those terms mean? SDR, AE?
Oh, so SDR is sales development rep. That's like the person who's booking appointments.
Okay.
The AE is an account executive. That's the person that's closing the deals.
Okay.
So the SDR is supposed to fill the calendar of the AE, the account executive, with meetings that they can take with customers and prospects to sell stuff.
Okay.
So I was the one making cold calls and setting appointments.
And you're selling this tech company, they're offering their service.
Yeah, it was like social media monitoring for big brands. Yeah, It was pretty cool. I met some incredible people. I learned a ton. But I did not know that was really the job I was signing up for. And so I remember when I called my parents and I was like, I got another job. I'm quitting Morgan Stanley and I'm moving to Baltimore. And here's what I'm going to be doing. They were like, so you're going to be a telemarketer? Like, yeah, I think so. Sounds better than this, though.
Yeah.
So that's how I got the first job. I really had no idea what I was doing. I just had a connection with somebody that was kind enough to introduce me to somebody who liked their job. And then I started making cold calls.
Wow. Okay. So you moved to DC. Yeah. You're there. You're cold calling.
Cold calling my little heart out.
Did you like cold calling?
No, I didn't like cold calling, but I did like crafting emails. Like I actually love writing, and I do feel like I was able to perfect the craft of being concise. Honestly, if only we had ChatGPT back in my SDR days, like I would have made so much money.
Yeah.
But,
okay, awesome.
So like pro tip out there, if you're doing that job now.
So how long were you an SDR at that company?
Not even a year. I got promoted pretty quickly. I think it was maybe 9 months or so. And I started feeling a little bit frustrated because I knew I could close the deals too. And I was thinking, like, I don't need to just be setting these appointments. Like, give me a shot. Put me in. I want to close the deal. And so I started making it known that I wanted to get promoted. And I started asking, what do I need to do to get promoted? Like, what do I have to do to show you that I can close a deal? Because it's interesting because the qualities of somebody that's setting appointments as an SDR is not necessarily the same as somebody that's going to close deals really well. And so I knew it wasn't just about making more phone calls and sending more emails and booking more appointments. I knew I needed to show something else. Yeah. So I just got really clear with my boss on what do I need to do to have a chance to interview for this role. And they told me, and like 9 months in, I got promoted.
So what did he say that you needed to do?
Yeah, he mostly talked about it wasn't about volume, it was about quality.
Okay.
And finding the people that were actually going to be good customers for the business. And not just taking any meeting that would say, with a person that would say yes to booking a call. It was like, find the people who we can actually add value to, find the companies that we could help and change and like really make a difference in their business. And once you've perfected the craft of identifying that, it will be much easier for you to actually close business yourself.
Okay. And then when you were asking him, how do I get promoted? What was your like method of going about that? Were you in person or was this like remote? Like, were you like slacking him or emailing him like, hey?
It was all in person at this point. We went to the office every single day. And I mean, I'm sure I didn't do it right. I was so young.
You would just like nudge him. And
I was so young, and I probably had a chip on my shoulder, and I probably was a little too like pushy in my ask. I'm sure I didn't do it right, but I do remember just in my head thinking like, you're not going to get it if you don't ask, and just be clear in expressing that you want this for yourself. And so those were the only two things really in my mind. Like, I was very clear that I wanted to get promoted and have a chance to be an account executive. And I was very clear and like, please tell me exactly what I need to do to hit this. So
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. I tried to be professional, but I'm sure I didn't nail it. I was like 21.
Well, at least they know that you're motivated and you're ready to grow with the company and help them. So you go from SDR to what was the next title?
Account executive. AE.
Account executive, the AE. Okay.
It's like sales rep.
Okay. Yeah. And then how long were you in that role?
I was in that role for probably a year-ish. One of my more fond memories of that is I closed like the biggest deal in company history.
Oh, wow.
As a brand new AE.
Yeah.
To this really cool restaurant group in Chicago. And that did give me I think that was pivotal actually, now that I think about it. It gave me a boost of confidence very early into this that I actually knew what I was doing. Even though I didn't think I knew what I was doing. It was like, okay, I'm onto something here. This will work for me. And I was in the role for about a year, and then the company was actually sold. So I got laid off.
Oh.
Yeah. The company was sold to a bigger company, and I was laid off. and I had to find another job.
And then what job did you find after that?
So after that job, it was that continued the path of like tech startup SaaS companies. So that was another one. It was based in San Francisco, and I had no idea really where to go. But again, it was just through using connections that I had made through that job that was sold to another company. And there was a business that was based in San Francisco starting an office in DC. So it was an opportunity to like grow something from the ground up, which felt really interesting to me.
Yeah.
And so I went for it, and I ended up actually working again with one of the guys that also was laid off from the previous job.
Wow.
So
interesting.
Yeah. So we got to do it together. And that was when I felt like my career started to take shape, and I started to get more intentional in the path that I wanted to take. And that's when I really gained a few solid mentors in my life that I still have today, that I run, new career moves by, make sure that I'm not thinking about things too crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, it was a scary time because I'd never been laid off before, and I felt really bad about myself, but it really was no reflection on me. It was the company was sold and my job didn't exist anymore.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you said that you sold the biggest sale that was ever done at that company that got sold. How did you leverage that experience or kind of use that experience as a selling point in your applications or your resume to new companies?
Totally. It was like my Rolodex. I've sold to these companies. Here's the deal value that I sold. Here's the functions within those companies that I've sold to. And this is why I would be a good fit for the new company. It's all about like telling the story. You can kind of tell the story no matter who you sold to, what role, what size the deal. You can tell your story in a way that makes you marketable to most positions. It's just about like, what is the new company looking for? What is the actual experience that you have, and trying to bridge that gap in ways that feel genuine and comfortable for you. But I don't think I've ever applied for a job where there wasn't some things that I knew I would need to do that were going to be a stretch for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once you got into that new role, how long, where are we talking about, like in time reference to where you are now?
So I spent that company, the company that I worked for after I was laid off, I spent more than 3 years there. And so I guess that was like 4 companies ago.
Okay. Wow. You've been through a lot of companies.
Yeah.
And what advice would you give someone if they feel like they're at a company and they're not sure if it's time to leave?
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone if they're wondering, is it time for me to leave or should I stay with this company?
Yeah. This is not going to be like revolutionary or anything, but it has been like my tried and true method. If you're not learning anymore, or let me phrase it the other way. Stay if you are continuing to learn and grow. Stay if you're continuing to earn, and stay if there's some strategic aspect of your role. Like, okay, you're doing this to get industry experience in this particular vertical or industry because I want to start my own business in this industry one day, or I want to pivot to a broader career in this industry. Even if you feel like you're maybe lacking in the learning or earning area, if there's like that strategic component, it can sometimes still make sense to earn. So like, I guess the summary is if you're not learning, earning, or there's no strategic reason for you to be there that's going to help you in your future, it's time to take a look and reassess where else you could go.
Do you feel like you need to have another job lined up in order to ask for a raise or like a change in your current company? Because what if they say no?
Yeah, I feel like this is like differing opinions, and it's also just based on like your personal tolerance for risk. That's not true. I quit my most recent job without having something else fully lined up because I knew, but to be totally fair, I knew I would get something. I had some irons in the fire. I felt pretty confident. But I think in terms of like negotiating a raise and finding a new job, it's always better to have something else, have a backup option before you just go quit or before you like get really drastic with the things that you're asking for. But I think maybe it's different for both. I wouldn't I wouldn't necessarily recommend quitting a job before you have another one lined up, unless your goal is to take like 6 months off or a few months off to recharge, which is amazing. That was the best thing I've ever done for myself.
Yeah.
So if that's your strategy, great. But if you just know you're like going to be immediately into job hunting mode, it's probably safer to stay existing. If you're just negotiating a promotion or a raise, you definitely do not need to have a job offer in hand. You do, though, need to inform yourself about the market rate and like what else you could be paid. What are other companies for a similar role paying their employees, and bring that hard data to the table. And then it becomes much more difficult for your employer to, say no. It's real data. They know you could leave, especially if you're hitting your numbers and you're a valued employee. They know you could walk and go get a job somewhere else. So bringing that information to the table is always the way to go. You don't have to have a job offer in hand, though.
Yeah. And what kind of like mindset do you have when you go about something like that? Like, I feel like that could be really scary.
Yeah. Okay. So mindset, you've got to go into the depths of finding your confidence and reminding yourself of your value and your worth and looking back at the objectives. Like, it shouldn't be subjective. It's very objective if you are thriving, exceeding expectation, doing really well. And that is where you should look to get the confidence and the reminder and like the value that you bring to the table. As far as the energy, like that's the mindset, the energy that you can bring, I would say like go say this out loud to the people that support you so that they can hype you up and make you feel really good about yourself. And just like, the pump up talk, the pep talk.
Yeah.
Go get a bunch of pep talks, but like it shouldn't be a subjective thing. You should, my view is that you should always pretty much know whether it's a no-brainer for them to say yes to a promotion or a raise going in because you've got the data and the facts to back it up. And if they still say no, that's a great indicator that the company you work for is not aligned with helping you professionally grow, personally grow, financially grow. And that's a red flag.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so I'd love to talk about the sabbatical that you took. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what made you make that decision?
I took a little more than 2 months off before starting this new role, and it was the best thing I've ever done. I really didn't even put that much thought into it. It was more like a feeling. I was so burnt out. I ended my day every single day feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so drained. I'm not motivated. Why am I doing this? I'm building somebody else's dream, not even my own. My time is so valuable and it doesn't feel like I'm getting much out of this. I was paid well and I can't say that I wasn't, but I wasn't feeling like motivated, inspired, energized. And those are all things that matter a lot to me. I don't want to just have a job for the paycheck. I want to feel like I'm making a difference. I want to feel like I'm growing and I'm helping people and I'm doing something that matters, like it's silly. It's not silly, but like you're leaving behind memory. Like I want the memory of me to be that I made an impact, not that I just went through the motions. So once that became really consistent and I started to feel myself like not sleeping very well, I was so irritable. I was like dreading things that I normally enjoyed. I just thought, oh my gosh, I need a hard reset. That's why I thought about it. I need a hard reset so I can heal myself. It was a healing process for me more than anything. I needed to heal my brain. I needed to heal my spirit and my energy. I needed to heal the passion, refine the passion that I actually had for my career, because I've always been career motivated and really enjoyed work. And I wasn't feeling that. I needed to reset on like my priorities and spend a lot of time. I have a little more than 1-year-old, and I felt like I wasn't present during the time that I was spending with him. And I was like counting down the moments till he went to bed. And that's a terrible feeling as a new mother. Like you feel guilty when you're at work because you're not spending time with the kid. And then when you're not working and you're with the kid, you're like, oh, I need to be working, or oh, I just want to be spending time by myself. And it just, burning, what is that saying?
You're burning it from both ends.
Yeah, that. I was doing that. So it was a healing process for me to just reset all of those things. And I told myself, like, I don't know exactly how long this is going to be, but I'm going to take as long as I need to feel like I'm back on solid ground in all of those areas. That meant a lot to me. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do another job well unless I was back in a really healthy place in the like core areas and priorities for me. So What I did during that 2 months was, at first it was not a lot. And at first it was adjusting to the fact that I wasn't doing a job every day and I was just chilling at home. And, I went on a lot of walks and listened to a lot of podcasts, thought about who I am, what I'm doing, what's the purpose of life. And then it was like, there wasn't a moment that I started to feel like myself and more creative again, but it took me probably 3 weeks to get into the groove of, okay, what is my life without a job at the moment? And then once I felt comfortable with that, I felt like creative again. I felt happy and energized again. I felt like I could start getting crystal clear on like, what do I want from this life? What do I want to do? What businesses do I want to build? What impact do I want to make? And that, honestly, during that sabbatical is when you and I started talking about anti-gatekeeping and gateless and figuring out how we could make a positive impact on women's life by connecting them and elevating like what's working, just sharing openly what's working. So I suppose the sabbatical was reflective too. I reflected on like what was so draining and like all the gates and barriers that are present in most like career-based work, honestly in all work, not just career-based work. And so that's what I did during the sabbatical. And I felt like even though those around me didn't necessarily understand, like, oh my gosh, you're going to take that much time off work. Like, what are you even going to do? I didn't care. I knew in my soul that I needed it. Yeah,
absolutely. So what did you realize was so draining about your previous role?
It was a few things. I think the biggest was that the inputs and the energy and time that I had to deposit into that role were very out of balance with what I was getting in return. I was not ending the day feeling like I was making a huge impact on people's lives. I was not ending the day feeling like I was a better version of myself. And so it was like a math problem that wasn't adding up. Like I was depositing way more than I was getting out, and it felt bad. I think the reason that happened was because the company I was working for just got to a place where like it wasn't small anymore. It was pretty big. It was scaling. The economy hasn't been amazing for tech software. And so numbers were high. People weren't hitting goals. So it was like, do more, do more, do more, do more. And that wasn't the thing. That wasn't the lever that was actually going to yield in the outcome that the business was hoping for. And the people who were hurt by that were like me. I was leading a sales org at the time, and they were hurting. I was hurting. Everyone in the business on the front lines really were feeling the pain of that. So it was like a misalignment in what the business was asking of me and what I actually felt like I wanted to give to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So before you found the role that you're in now, that you feel a lot more aligned with and it's a lot more fulfilling, how did you go about, like, what advice would you give someone who is in the same position as you, that's feeling burnt out, feels like they're not making a difference, just feels like their job is sucking the life out of them?
Yeah.
What advice would you give them as they are looking for new positions? Like, what should they do first before just, finding any new company?
I think you can boil it down into just a couple things that would make a big difference. The first is, if you can, give yourself space away from that job that is so awful. Awful is not the right word, but that's burning you out and that's making you feel drained. Space away from that is what's going to get your mind right to actually be able to move into the next phase, which is like identify how do you want to feel? What do you want to do? How do you want that to impact like your big, huge goals that you've got for yourself in your life? I think it's really hard to do that when you're in the mindset of like tired, exhausted, burnt out, don't love it, uninspired, not creative. It's hard to even remember like who you are and what you want.
Yeah.
So space away. And if you can't actually quit the job, because I think I did tell you don't quit the job before you have something lined up, unless you're going to take a sabbatical, then you have to be extremely clear about what your boundaries are with personal and professional. Set your working hours. Don't go outside of them, and use all of that time and space outside of the working hours to like rest and be creative and find yourself again. And then you can start to make your list of priorities. Like, where do I want to pivot to a different space? Do I want to start my own thing? Do I want to learn a new skill that I don't have yet that's going to help me in the future? So I guess it's two things, like the space. So either take some time off or actually make space in your day for just yourself and not thinking about doing work. And then start to get really clear on like, what is it that you want? What do you want to earn? What do you want to feel? What impact do you want to make in people's lives? And I really believe that you can marry the things you're good at and your passions in a way that you can make money. Mm-hmm. If you get creative, and it doesn't matter if your whole career is built in tech sales or in entrepreneurship or in medical device sales or healthcare or whatever, like if you give yourself enough space to think about it and get creative, you can marry the two for sure. Mm-hmm. Especially in today's world where like you can pretty much create a course for anything that you can sell, a app for anything that you can sell, a community for anything that you're really passionate about. There are ways, and it's about like just zooming out and laying all the cards on the table and being like, okay, how do I stack these? What's my next chess move? Yeah,
absolutely. So if you could give advice to a younger Kara or someone who is in that position of just finding that first job that will put them on the path to success, what advice would you give them?
I think the first is trusting your gut. And I know that that's an easy thing to say, but it's actually pretty hard to do when it comes to career pathing and money making and confidence. It's hard to do. So trusting your gut when you know a role is right, and trusting your gut when you know it's time to leave. Mm-hmm. Because I think people stay at jobs way longer than maybe they should have because they convince themselves like it'll get better or I'm the problem. And it's usually not true. So trusting your gut after you've sat on the feeling for a while and it like keeps coming up and it's consistent, like trust the patterns, mm-hmm. not the exceptions. So trusting your gut. I suppose the second is you gotta bet on yourself. If there's one person that you're gonna bet on, even if it feels like a stretch role or a risky move or an industry you don't know a lot about, bet on yourself because you are confident enough and you are capable enough of learning anything that you don't already know, mm-hmm. if you want to. And so it's betting on yourself without limits, I guess is how I would summarize that. You don't have to wait to fit 100% of a job description before you apply.
That's a good one.
Guys don't.
Yeah.
They apply when they fit like 50%. Yeah. And I love that for them, but I want that for us too, you know?
That's a really good one. For some reason, I've never thought about that.
Yeah. Like bet on yourself without limits. You can learn anything you don't already know. And like there's work to be done in telling the story and marrying your skills and your experience and your passions with whatever that job you want is. But trust your gut of when to take the job and when to leave, and bet on yourself without limits.
I love that. That's so good. Okay, it's time for our rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So tell us something about you that is not on your LinkedIn or your social media.
I'm really into astrology,
Ooh.
cosmos.
Ooh.
I love pulling spirit animal cards when I feel lost. I don't know, like it's so contradictory to my personality. I'm pretty pragmatic and like
I see it though, because you are super interested in that
I
stuff.
am like I truly bookmarked on my laptop is my daily horoscope and my birth chart.
I love that.
And I reference my birth chart pretty often. I love it.
Yeah, it's
like a guiding light that is not so objective.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
It's fun. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Good to know. Okay. Noted.
Birthdays. Tell me your birthday, where you were born, and what time, and I'm going to know everything I need to know about you.
Yeah, seriously. Okay. If you weren't working in your current field, what do you think your dream job would be?
Ooh.
Other than dolphin trainer.
Dolphin trainer. I've convinced myself of so many different dream jobs. Like, okay, and dream job in general without the limitations of actually who I am as a human being. Does that count?
Yeah, I think so.
So maybe I'll give you two. Okay, yeah. If there were not actual limitations of who I am, I would love to be a doctor. I can't. That's not in the cards for me because I pass out.
Yeah.
I can't even. I literally had a natural childbirth because I couldn't fathom the needle going into my back. It was not because I was trying to be like woo-woo, healthy, hippie, anything like that.
Yeah.
Although it's a beautiful experience. It's because I truly...
it is scary to think about.
Yeah. And then more realistic, I mean, I would love for my full-time job to be building this community and really like truly making a huge impact in connecting women, breaking down barriers that prevent them from excelling in their career, like just building out what this whole community means is my dream job.
I love that. So subscribe. Give Kara a job. Okay. Last question. Tell us about a time when your confidence was at an all-time high.
The thing that just jumped out to me was like after I had my son, I was so proud of myself. Aww. I was so proud of myself. Like, it can make me cry. I was so proud of myself, not only that I felt like I had such control over that experience because I was confident. I bet on myself without limits. Yeah. I knew I could do it. And I hired a doula who's amazing, and I hope that she's on this podcast one day. And I like did it naturally, and it was the most empowering, beautiful experience ever. And I was proud of myself for days, weeks. The first thing that I said as soon as he came out wasn't like, oh my God, he's beautiful. It was like, I can't believe I did that. I was so proud of myself. My husband looked at me like, oh, good job, sister. Like, now the baby's here. Time to focus.
Like, okay.
Your child is here.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
This was great.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Gateless Podcast. We really hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as we have.
Remember, the Gateless community is at your fingertips, where the conversation never stops, and women support each other on the road to success, one story at a time.
If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's like giving us a virtual high five.
And while you're at it, share the podcast with your fellow anti-gatekeepers.
Until next time, keep chasing your dreams and breaking those glass ceilings. After all, you are the master of your own success story.
Thanks for being part of the Gateless journey. Catch you later.